What's up, everybody? It's Scotty here with Flat Track Flashback, and as I'm recording this, it's about 10 to 11 a.m. on Sunday morning, the day after the Texas half mile, and I have a lot of feelings that I'm trying to kind of navigate, present, organize, I guess. Last night was a friggin' mess. There's a lot to say about it. I'm not going to dive into everything just off the jump here. But before we get into the recap of what happened last night, I need to extend our thoughts and prayers to the riders who had some pretty scary moments last night. Taylor Little in the build train race class had a really scary crash coming out of turn 2. Braden Fanders, very awkward moment after his crash in turn 2 in the AFT singles main event. And in a separate incident, at the end of the singles main event last night, Aiden Roos-Evans and Evan Renshaw had a very, very wild crash going into turn 3 on that, which ended up leading to that race being called. Been able to speak with Renshaw, Roos-Evans, and Taylor Little. I'm still waiting to hear back from Braden Fanders. Reached out to him this morning as well. Renshaw and Little seem to be doing okay. Turner Racing put out a statement for Evan Renshaw about him being released from the hospital, and they'll give you more updates as it comes. Aiden, unfortunately, broken ribs, collapsed lung, broken elbow, pretty serious injuries for him. We did get to speak with him briefly this morning. He's going to be out for a while, and that's extremely unfortunate because Roos-Evans was really starting to find his groove and looked really strong coming off his career best in Sonoy, and then was putting together a pretty solid run last night before that really scary crash going into turn 3. So off the jump here, I just want to extend our thoughts and prayers are with those riders who went down and their families. As you guys know about Back on Track with the class of 79, that helps all these injured riders. If you're able to, please support that cause. Please continue to donate if you can, because they help our injured riders with expenses and help with recovery and getting back on the track. So if you can support that charity, please do so. We're very lucky to have them involved in this sport, and especially when it comes time like this. I'll kind of get on some of my frustrations with last night's event on the back end of this, but I'm gonna go through the recap first. We're gonna talk about twins, talk about singles, where things stack up after we've officially finished the first quarter of the season, and then I'll go into some just kind of I've got just unorganized notes and things to talk about at the back end of that. So I guess if you want to hear me speak about that, you can skip through all this recap stuff if you already know what happened and don't want to hear a whole lot of thoughts on that. But Texas Motor Speedway facility is top-notch. It's an amazing facility for the NASCAR track, the mini sprint go-kart track. What they have on site is great. But the dirt at Texas Motor Speedway for motorcycle racing, to me, that track has never really impressed me. It's made me more nervous than anything, and last night was no exception. Early in the day, with the first practice sessions, you don't normally see guys just in full send mode. Everybody's trying to figure it out. But you could noticeably tell that people didn't look comfortable on that track. Jared Mees almost had a crash early on. Coming out of turn 4, and turn 4 would end up being a pretty treacherous spot as well. These corner exits, turn 4 especially, you saw a lot of guys getting upset coming off the corner there on multiple occasions. Mees was not the only one. In the opening practice session, we saw Ben Lau go down. And as the day progressed, the guys started to get a hold of the track a little bit more. Jared Mees, who has won 3 times at this track, worst finish was second, odds-on favorite coming into the night. He would set quick time. His lap time was a full second slower than what they were running in 2022 at this track in qualifying, but me still tops the charts with Brandon Robinson, who looked really, really strong early on. He was improving throughout the practice session. Dallas Daniels was up front every practice session as well, looking pretty good. Max Whale, also very impressive on his XG750. He was up there inside the top 10 every single session. Looked to be the top rookie on that. And then a huge shout out to Declan Bender, who didn't get any practice, but then came out in qualifying. And in that last qualifying session, laid down his best lap. He was actually 7th in the second qualifying session, which put him 9th overall. And he set that lap while in a pretty good battle in practice with Bronson Bauman and Ben Lau. So Declan looking really comfortable, looking really good on that bike at Texas Motor Speedway and getting a qualifying in the top 10 and looking to build momentum on that throughout the night. As you go into heat racing, the very bottom of the racetrack, not proven to be the best starting spot, at least for your launch. And Mies would kind of get bottomed off the start. He had a little bit of a wheel stand. And Jared Vanderkooi and Brandon Price, along with Brandon Robinson, would get ahead of Mies going into the corner, but Vanderkooi and Price kind of came together, and that allowed Mies to make up a little bit for his poor jump off the line and kind of settle in behind Robinson off the start. And as we're going into turn 3, you get the side of somebody who just sends it into the corners. And I don't think anybody runs it deeper into a corner in flat track than Johnny Lewis does. At Royal Enfield may not hook up great off the corners and may struggle overall, but Johnny is going to get the most out of that, and he is going to send it into the corner. And he was doing that last night, poking a nose up underneath. And Johnny seems to be able to do it under control. Doesn't appear, at least, to be like he's going into takeout mode. But Johnny runs it in deep, and he did that early in the heat race, had to make moves. His track was very difficult to really pass on. You definitely needed to kind of stay on sort of a narrow racing line. But as we would see throughout this heat race, a lot of little mistakes from Brandon Robinson. Jared Mies ends up taking over the lead, goes on to win the heat race. Declan Bender's strong night continues as he gets a direct transfer to the main. And then Mies would mention how difficult it was to determine exactly where to place your bike on the track with, where the groove was versus the marbles versus the edges. Like, it was difficult to figure out where you needed the bike to be. But one thing that Jared was doing throughout the night that everybody else seemed to be struggling with was, in the heat racing at least, and early on, he's able to keep momentum lower on the track. He was able to keep his bike lower on the racetrack and keep that momentum going and be a little bit faster, whereas other guys were kind of drifting up a little bit in the corners, weren't able to quite keep it on the bottom and keep their momentum going. Jared seemed to really figure that out and was super strong throughout the early part of the evening in keeping that bike under control on the bottom of the racetrack and keeping his momentum and fast lines going. But Jared and Brandon Robinson will go on to the dash. In Heat 2, Dallas Daniels and Briar Bauman jump out to a pretty sizable lead early on before a big moment from Briar where he almost crashes. He runs up the track kind of into Dallas just a touch, but saves it. That allowed Davis Fisher to kind of close up on those two. But while that was all going on, you had a huge gaggle of riders fighting for those final transfer spots with Maxwell, Colby Carlisle, Dan Bromley, Ben Lau, Morgan Mishler, all battling it out for that final transfer spot. Ultimately, Bromley and Mishler would miss out from direct transfers and have to go to the LCQ. Dallas holds on to win, and Briar comes some second, and Briar shared his thoughts on the surface in an interview that has quite a solid soundbite. If you haven't had a chance to go back and hear that, say go for it. With the LCQ, the Hondas would get a little bit of redemption and go 1-2 in that last chance race. So Mishler getting the win after Bromley had a really big moment coming off of turn 4, leading early. His teammate Mishler gets around him, takes the win in the LCQ. And it's good to see Morgan Mishler get some laps in competitive action on that Honda because he really hasn't gotten to do a whole lot with it in these early rounds. But this gap between Sonoy and Texas allowed that team to really get some work done on those machines, and they look pretty good in those events. Again, it's just nice to see those Hondas at speed. Definitely going to be in a developmental phase throughout this year, but every little bit of progress is good to see from that team. And Mishler and Bromley go 1-2 in the LCQ. Bring along Brandon Price as well with Cam Smith, Bronson Bauman, and Kevin Stallings gets a Kawasaki in the main event there at Texas. Now on to the dash. One thing about these dashes so far is that in the twins class, Dallas Daniels and Brandon Robinson are 4 for 4. They've made every single Mission Foods Too Fast, Too Tasty challenge on the season thus far. And this was a pretty dicey race. Dallas Daniels had that second pick from the bottom, which Scotty Taylor had mentioned seemed to be paying off for most people. That very bottom didn't seem to be the best place to start. And Daniels made that second spot, worked to his advantage. He gets a good start, leads him into the corner. And then Briar had started working the second groove a little bit higher up on the track. He was trying to work that in and looked really, really sporty on it. Pulls even with Dallas and is really battling him in this dash. And then they end up going 3 wide with Mies diving up underneath him. Mies able to go third to first after going into turn 1 as they were beginning lap number 3. And Mies was able to take the lead and kind of expand that from there and take his first dash win of the season. But it was it was good to see on this track. It was good to see another line kind of coming into play, so it didn't become super follow the leader there, as this track tends to be. Breyer working that high line, and Breyer's going to try stuff. He's going to try to make something work if he can. With that high line, the wall just comes up so fast on you, and you get pinched off a lot. So if you're going to make that move work, you really have to get the power to the ground coming off the corner and clear the guy in front of you, because otherwise you're going to get squeezed. And Breyer was trying to make that work. Just couldn't quite make it happen there in the dash. Super Twins main event would be the second main event on the night. It took place after the Build Train Race program. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. But the Super Twins main event, with weather in the area, gets shortened to 8 minutes plus 2 laps. As we go off the line, Jared Mees, not a great start. He's 5th as they're entering the corner, and Dallas gets an early lead, but Jared's able to recover and get back into second. There was a big moment between Breyer Bauman and Brandon Robinson on that opening lap as they come off of 4 and backed them up a little bit in this race as well. They kind of ended up in a mix with Johnny Lewis, and then Jared Mees is able to take off and try to run down Dallas Daniels. And Jared's able to actually get around Dallas about lap 4, but Dallas wasn't going to just let him escape. He battled back and retook the lead, and Brandon Robinson by this time had caught back up to them, and Brandon Robinson able to squeeze under Jared as well and knock Jared back to 3rd, and this would be vital. Robinson was able to start rolling the outside. Again, we mentioned in the dash that line was coming in, and Robinson used that outside line to his advantage and was able to clear Daniels and take the lead as we were around the halfway mark in that. And Brandon Robinson, Dallas Daniels, Jared Mees, they were the class of the field. It's an 8-minute race. 3 minutes into this race, they were almost a full straightaway ahead of the rest of the pack. They were definitely a class above and really separated themselves in this event. Mees would get by Dallas Daniels, and Dallas had a little mistake and sort of lost touch with the top 2 for a little bit. He was able to start reeling them in slowly but surely, but couldn't quite get up to where he could make a move on Jared and Brandon later in the race. Dallas would have to settle for 3rd and let the 2 Indians settle it amongst themselves. So is Jared going to make it 4 in a row in Texas, or can Brandon pull off what, quite frankly, I would believe to be an upset? And Jared was running deep into turns 3 and 4. He just couldn't quite get the exit, but he was definitely sailing it off into the corner, especially in 3 and 4. He'd lose a little bit of ground on Brandon on exit, but Brandon started making these little mistakes in the last few laps, and it looked like Jared was going to have a chance to pounce, but Brandon, very defensive. Instead of rolling that higher line, he was blocking a lot more, keeping it on the bottom. Jared was going to have to roll the outside, and he wasn't quite able to do it. He pulled even with him going into 3 and 4 on the last lap, but Brandon gets enough of a drive, and Brandon Robinson holds on to pick up his 2nd win of the season. I did not think Brandon would be the first rider to get 2 wins on the year, but this has been a really impressive Brandon Robinson this year. This is a rider who we know is capable of winning anywhere, but Brandon's been incredibly strong to start this season. 2 wins, 2 third-place finishes, and Brandon's able to retake the point lead as we head into California for 2 short tracks. So great ride for Brandon on the night. As he holds off Mees and Daniels, finishing up the podium. Davis Fisher ends up coming home 4th, with Breyer Bauman rounding out the top 5 as we go through the rest of the results here on the screen. Max Whale, who looked really impressive all day long, is able to put that XG into the top 10. It's his best career finish in the Super Twins class as he brings home a 7th. And then also we mentioned how cool it was to see Declan Bender up there in the top 10 getting direct transfers. He ends up coming home with his career best in the Twins class, getting a 10th place finish on that Indian. So Max and Declan, the top 2 rookies. Trevor Bruner, not a great night for him, struggled on that bike. The 2 Hondas also not quite able to make any headway in the main event. As we look at the points now, Brandon Robinson, again, we mentioned he took over the points lead. He's got a 4-point edge over Dallas Daniels. Jared Mees just 11 back as we head to the California short tracks. But I would say that Brandon Robinson and Dallas Daniels are pretty excited about where they're sitting here early on. Behind them, Breyer Bauman 4th, already 27 points back, 28 back to Davis Fisher. And then behind them, Brandon Price, 29 back, and Jared Vanderkooy, 31 back. So a pretty tight battle there for 4th. But Breyer Bauman's not somebody who wants to be fighting for 4th in points. It's where he finished last year, but Breyer is a 2-time champion, and we thought this year he might be back up in the title hunt, but maybe there is something to be said about the KTM machine still needing a good bit of development. Breyer's got a really strong team in his corner, and he's not somebody who normally finishes a straightaway behind these leaders, and Breyer was 9.5 seconds back in 5th place at Texas. Or that'd be the bike or the track conditions. It's not something we normally see out of Breyer, who I think is probably looking forward to these short tracks coming up on the West Coast back in California. I I would think Breyer might also be a threat to take a win at one of those as well. Moving on to the singles class, we mentioned at the top of the Twins recap there that nobody looked comfortable on the track in practice. Well, in the singles class, there was one rider who did look comfortable on those conditions, and it was Tom Drain. Tom was the only rider who seemed to look settled and comfortable out on the track during that first practice session. Everybody else was kind of all over the place there. It just didn't look like people were comfortable, more riding versus racing the track. Again, early in the day, you're trying to get a grip on things. But Tom looked really quick, and it kind of seemed like it might be shades of Night 2 in Daytona, where he was going to come out, lay down a good lap early on, and be the strongest rider all night. And then later in that session, Chase Sadoff, again, who shows speed early in the day. He's been a great qualifier this season. Chase was able to steal quick time in practice and kind of set himself up for success later on as we would head into qualifying. Two things to note for this class. Only 25 bikes. Not great. Not great for a 450 class to only have 25 machines. We've kind of just become numb to it in the Twins class with there only being, 20-something. But only having mid-20s in the 450 class is kind of alarming, to say the least. And that was with a couple of riders returning in Evan Kelleher, who's come back from his injury down in Daytona, and Gage Smith, who we haven't seen in a while, returning from his road to recovery. Gage was really strong at this track in 2022, so it's good to see him back out on the track with AFT. And then Chad Coase was on a new ride, no longer with Waters Auto Body. He's riding the Lehman Racing Honda, and Chad's been really strong on Hondas in the past. So Chad looked to have pretty good speed early on in the day. We talked about Gage Smith and Olin Kistler, Braden Fanders, Ian Wolf. All of them looked strong earlier in practice, with Evan Renshaw, James Ott, and Shayna Texter-Bauman kind of struggling early on. As qualifying and stuff would begin, you would see Renshaw really pick up the pace. James Ott really pick up the pace. Renshaw got really impressive as the day went on, as he started to find more comfort with the track. Ends up qualifying really well, especially in that second qualifying session. I believe he was third overall in that. Ended up being fourth overall amongst qualifying, third in qualifying to fourth overall on the day, and puts him on the front row. His best effort of the year thus far. And fastest overall, though, Tom Drain, 21.2, sets quick time overall. And then behind him, Trent Lowe, Chase Sadoff, Evan Renshaw. The Honda's looking really strong out there. A couple of KTMs, though, not so great. Cody Kopp was 11th after qualifying session 1, was able to pick it up a pretty good amount, and ended up 7th overall in qualifying. Now, Cody in 2022 didn't seem to have a hold of the track until the racing began. Cody actually qualified 11th in 2022, was able to salvage a second-place finish that year. So Cody having not so stellar qualifying result, not that alarming. Cody seemed to do really well when he had somebody to chase after. When he was out by himself, lap times didn't seem to be there, but when he was behind somebody and kind of had a target to aim for, he seemed to really pick up the pace. Another rider on KTM who was struggling was Dalton Gauthier, who was 11th overall on the night. Looking back in 2022, I wasn't too alarmed by that because he was 10th overall on that night and was able to salvage a top 5 finish. But Heat Race 1 was everybody who's been kind of the class of the singles field thus far this year. And it was Tom Drain, Chase Sadoff, Cody Cobb, Dalton Gauthier, all in the same heat race. Just a stacked heat race. Again, we've seen those four have really been the class of the field. Quick timing, dash wins, main event wins, podiums. They'd really been the top echelon of the singles class. And as we go into turn 1, Drain gets the whole shot and starts again. Tom has been whole shot artist this year. But with this, there was a determined Honda behind him, and that was Chase Sadoff. And Chase would have a big moment at the beginning of the race, coming off a turn 1 on that opening lap, but recovers, chases down Tom, brings Cody with him, and as there's 2 to go, Chase is able to take the lead, and then on the white flag lap coming out of 2, Cody gets by Tom Drain. So then the fast qualifier, Tom, goes from leading every lap of this heat race to missing out on a dash spot. Chase, again, looking really strong, fast early on, didn't get overall quick time, but looked strong in his heat race. After a mistake, ran down Tom, passed him, and took home the win. And we mentioned Tom missing the dash. This is now the third time that the fast qualifier has missed the Al-Am singles challenge. So maybe, you get that front row spot, but the only guy who's been fast time and made the dash on the night this year has been Cody Kopp and Sonoy. Moving on to Heat 2. After a pretty bad start, Evan Renshaw We talked about how impressive he was all night, was getting really, really aggressive and pushing the issue. Very impressive on the night. Off the start, Chad Coase gets the whole shot. Bruce Evans able to take the lead early on, and then a really sketchy moment behind them where Logan Eisenhart almost high-sided off the back of one bike, and then Braden Fanders goes up and brushes the wall. Those two fading back. A lot of chaos happening there. We talked about how strong and aggressive Evan Renshaw looked. He's able to take the lead. Both Turner bikes go into the dash, Renshaw and Trent Lowe. We also have two more heavy hitters that have to go to the LCQ as Chad Coase, after hole shotting, ends up missing a transfer spot, as does James Ott, who podiumed here. His first career podium was at Texas Motor Speedway. He's now in the LCQ. So this LCQ has Dalton Gauthier, Chad Coase, Shayna Texter-Bauman, James Ott, Travis Pettin's in there. A lot of big names. I mean, that Coase, Gauthier, and Shayna Texter, that's a podium from not that long ago, and now they're fighting for transfer spots in the LCQ. As luck would have it, the cream rises to the top of this race. The top riders who shouldn't be here get to the front of the LCQ and are able to make transfers. Coase early lead. Dalton makes the pass. Dalton goes on to win ahead of Chad Coase. And Shayna Texter-Bauman, who had a not-so-great start, was just inside the transfer spot, started working that high line a little bit, was able to roll Olin Kistler and then roll past James Ott and make those outside passes work, and then chase down Chad Coase. Ended up settling for third spot there in the LCQ. But yeah, those five that we mentioned, strong riders who normally aren't in LCQs, do take those top spots. And Olin Kistler was in that final transfer spot until the last turn of the last lap, where Tyler Raggio gets by him and takes over sixth, the last direct transfer to the main. Going into the dash, we've got Cody Kopp, who's now the only rider to make every single Al-Am challenge, 4 for 4 on the year, put himself where he needs to be to pick up a little extra money, as well as have those front row starting spots in main events. Cody was the lone KTM amongst a bunch of hungry Hondas. And Evan Renshaw gets the whole shot, but Chase Sadoff and Cody Kopp were all over him. This was quite a dogfight early on. Those three really mixing it up. Chase gets by Renshaw, takes the lead. He's able to hold off Cody to take home the dash win. And Chase looked like he was just going to skip the interview. He went on back to the pits. I guess he'll come back for the big money later in the main event. Chase did end up coming back out to have the interview with Kristen Beat. Chase's first dash win on the year, and the strong consistency. Chase looking like he's going to put it all together. Can he get his first win? The singles main was the last main of the night, shortened to 6 minutes because of the weather that's in the area. It's starting to sprinkle as they're going off the line. And we'll recap, and yeah. So Renshaw gets the whole shot, but Sadoff quickly pounces, gets the lead, and starts to check out. Cody Kopp, bad start. He's buried in as far back as about 8 early on in this race, and just has to really start forcing the issue and move forward. Cody looked like he could make that bike work just about anywhere. He was making a lot of passes, definitely charging to the front. Our LCQ winner, Dalton Gauthier, we noticed he was off after just 3 laps, so a really bad night for that team as they finally gotten the funding together to make this West Coast run and off to a rocky start. Hopefully Dalton can rebound as we head to those short tracks out in California and make up some ground that he lost. DNFs just really kill your championship hopes in this class and really in AFT in general. It's not a long schedule, and the top riders are just so consistent, as we would see. Chase Sadoff starting to check out as the Turner bikes battle over second. Trent Lowe and Evan Renshaw have a dicey little battle for second, and just before halfway, Cody Kopp, who's worked his way past Bruce Evans, past Tom Drain, he's worked his way up into the top 5. He gets under Trent Lowe, and Tom follows suit. Tom follows Cody right up into 4th spot, and now they start chasing after Evan Renshaw. And when this happens, very scary moment. Braden Fanders goes down. Broadcast caught him on the track after that event. We're still thinking of Braden and hoping that he's all right, hoping nothing too severe injury-wise, and that we can see Braden back out there. He was running inside the top 10, has been really, really strong to start his rookie campaign, and is one of those riders that we're really excited to see progress in the sport. So, Braden, man, we're thinking of you. We hope you get well, man. After quite a delay, we get a restart here, and Tom's trying to go around the outside of Cody. Their lines kind of come together. They get high off of turn 2. Again, that wall comes up quick. They kind of run each other up to the wall. They both end up getting by Renshaw into second and third and start chasing after sat off, and it looked like Cody was going to make quite a race of it. Don't know if we were going to see a redo of the Ventura Middletown battles. Chase, few mistakes here and there, but he's still able to hold that low line. Cody not able to make that pass around the outside of him. And as we hit the 1:18 to go, 1 minute 18 second remaining, rain starts coming down. It makes the track super slick, more so than it already was. And the riders noticeably slow going into 3 and 4. Race gets red flagged. And this is where it should have stopped. So we'll get into that in a second. After a bit of a delay, they try to restart. And as they're going into turn 3 on this last restart, just very scary crash involving Evan Renshaw and Aiden Roos Evans. Renshaw's front end is completely snapped off the bike. Both he and Roos Evans moving around up by the air fence, but very scary spot on the track. Just high speed going into 3 and 4 on a half mile. And these bikes look pretty messed up, especially that 265 Turner Honda. So at this point, the race gets called. So props to Chase. Congratulations. We knew it was coming. I kind of thought maybe the short tracks out west were going to be more where you pick it up, but congratulations, man. You absolutely deserve this. Well done on that first win. And a lot of times we see these guys get their first wins and they start rolling them. So maybe this can be the thing that sends Chase on a little bit of a winning streak. We know he's strong on these short tracks, half miles. Chase is very versatile. He's been inside the top 5 every race, limiting mistakes and making the most of the opportunities. Chase brings home the win. Cody credited with second. Tom Drain third. Trent Lowe fourth. Jared Lowe ends up fifth with Roos Evans and Renshaw crashing out. Travis Pettin and Taro Santero always end up near each other in the running order. They end up 8th and 9th. Top riders just toward the back, though. Again, Renshaw, Roos Evans, Fanders, Gauthier, unable to finish. Scary moments for 3 of them. Chad Coase, Shayna Texter Bauman toward the back of the pack. And with that finish now in the points, Chase Sadoff moves into second. Cody Kopp, second place again. He's gone 1-2, 1-2. He's got the point lead still by 17, except for this time, like we said, over Sadoff. Tom Drain back 23. And then Trent Lowe and Dalton Gauthier, 37 and 38 back. Cody, again, just so consistent, so strong on all these tracks. He looks like he's the fastest rider out there in every main event, whether he's fastest in qualifying or heat race. He always looks to be sort of the ace and definitely shows why he's got that number 1 plate. And I think Cody's probably going to be the threat to pick up his third win. I guess if patterns can continue themselves, 1-2, 1-2, Cody's probably going to go 1-2 when we go to California. So who's going to get that other win when we go to Ventura? But Cody, another strong performance, makes the most of a less than ideal situation where he was again buried kind of mid pack early in that race and made things happen on that Rick Ware Racing KTM. Cody just again showing how special of a rider he is. Real quick, just want to touch on the Bill Train race class. Always cool to have them on site. Unfortunately, their race got shortened. Weather in the area and a very scary crash for Taya Little, who looked to be the fastest rider in that class all night. Her and Kinsey Luker had another chapter being written in their battle this year, and it looks like those two were going to be fun to watch as they dueled to the finish. But unfortunately, Taya, very scary crash in 1 and 2. We did hear from her and reaching out earlier today, so it's good to hear back from Taya. Kinsey Luker ends up getting credited with the win in this as their race gets shortened, only got to run about half of that. Shasta LaRue comes home in the runner-up spot for the Bill Train race girls. Again, unfortunate to see weather impact their race and also that crash. Just a lot of variables here with this race in Texas. Okay, so now is where I'm going to be frustrated. There's a lot of things about Texas's broadcast that really rub me the wrong way. And it honestly happened from the jump. When you tune in at 4:30, advertised time, 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central is when bikes were supposed to be on track. And there's nothing but a start screen on the broadcast. And there's no updates from the series, nothing going out saying that we're delayed, nothing like that. Thankfully, the Flat Track fan club is the people's champ and looks out for us. Because the series, it's like when something goes awry, they just hide from it rather than... I mean, this is just things that happen. This is just normal stuff. It's a dirt track. It's going to need to be prepped. And it's pretty simple to just come up and have literally anybody give you a PR spin on why it's delayed. And it's not even really a PR spin. You're just being honest. In fact, I've even written it out for you. You come up at 4:30 and you say that series and track officials are working diligently to provide the best possible racing surface for competitors and fans alike. We want to have a safe surface for riders to compete on while also allowing great racing for the fans in attendance. Bikes will be on track as soon as the series and track officials deem the surface ready for competitive action. You have literally anybody tell you that. But it took us 26 minutes to come up to anything on the track. And then finally, Kristen and Scotty do a great job of leading into a pre-produced package, filling us in on what's happening, even providing some insight and a little bit of preview to what to expect throughout the night, highlighting different riders that could be strong contenders for wins, giving brief recaps of where they're at in the season, providing some form of insight to kind of fill that bridge while the track is being worked in. We understand as race fans that, when there's weather and there's, other factors involved in this, just let us know. Just tell us. Just let us know what's going on. And we'll still, park on the broadcast and follow along. Just keep us updated. You got to tell people something. Again, when something goes awry, it's like they hide from it. And anyway, so there's that. Also, you could definitely tell that Ralph is excited to be going back to Chico. He's made that very clear. I think we've had as much hype about Ralph's fraternity brothers and going back to Chico as we've had about motorcycle racing. So I'm very excited to see what we get out of Ralph when we're actually at Chico. I wouldn't even mind having some of his fraternity brothers come in and talk on the show during practice. Let's get some funny banter back and forth between those two. Let's share some stories from the college days. Something different, just, I don't know, spice it up a little bit. But yeah, we heard a lot about how excited they are to go out to California and trying to fill that dead air. Allegedly, we're going to get an announcement about a finale this coming eventually. When they talked about the schedule, there was mention of the Sturgis TT. We'll see. And then I guess we're supposed to get a finale announcement soon. But as a series, you still don't have a finale. And AFT is not, I'm sorry, but no series needs to be hiding where your finale is. You need to have that set in stone when the schedule comes out. And if you want to make the argument it's hard to make a schedule, I'm sure it is. But World of Outlaws run 90 times a year. They have no problem making a schedule because they have good relationships with racetracks and promoters. So why does AFT not have these relationships and these tracks that they can come out with? I mean, we're looking at maybe 16 rounds this year. Maybe. We'll see what happens. And that's before track surface. That last restart, I can get you want to finish the race. You've come this far. You're so close. You want to finish it. But that last restart should not have happened for the singles class. Absolutely. They should not have sent them out there. In the beginning of the singles race, it's starting to rain. The commentary team's confused that we're going. A couple of riders on the front row are confused. Are we actually doing this? And then, yeah, that last restart happens, and you wad up Bruce Evans, you wad up Renshaw. We already don't have enough riders in this sport, and we just knocked off potentially two top stars in that singles class, two more, who may or may not make it to California. We know Bruce Evans is going to be out for a while. Why do you make that call? You're past halfway. The fans have already left. There's like 20 people left in the stands at that point. You're not putting on a show for really anybody. Chase should have been awarded a win there. And I don't know if there's a lack of trust or communication or what the disconnect is between riders and series, but there should have been a coming together. And that last restart should not have happened in the singles class. I'm sorry to be so negative at the end of this because there are some positive storylines coming out of Texas with these points battles, with these guys separating themselves, with some of the performances. There was some good racing at Texas Motor Speedway. We're heading into two short tracks out in California. One of them we've never been to. One of them was pretty exciting last year, at least during the singles class. Hopefully they can figure out the prep for the twins class. We've got Brandon Robinson, who's definitely contending for a title. It's not just the Jared and Dallas show. We've got that third variable in there, mixing it up with them. That's awesome in this twins class. Chase Saddop, again, finally getting that win, battling up there with Tom and Cody, and those three really separating themselves. We saw how strong Dalton was at the short tracks in Daytona and Sonoy, and now he's going to two more short tracks in California. He's able to get that. You should be excited about that. There's so much talent in this sport, but they need to have something that they can competently compete on and something that we can keep moving toward. Like, I don't know. It just feels like the series is a little bit lost. But yeah, now we're heading to Chico. We're going to get short track racing going on here for the next couple of weekends. We got the return of Sammy Halbert back with that Harley in the twins class. Can he get that win for him? I mean, Sammy's starts have been solid this year, and I think he's definitely going to be a threat in those twins class. Maybe to get another win. He's unbeaten in mission challenges, and Sammy's been putting in work down here, training at the Whitewater Center, which is an Olympic training facility here near Charlotte, putting in mountain bike runs, motos, training with the Team Fun Boys up there, getting some laps in on short tracks up there. He'll be back on the Harley. We'll see how well he can re-gel with that on a new surface, but I wouldn't be surprised if Sammy's right up there in the mix out in Chico, battling with the likes of Dallas, Brandon, Jared, Breyer. Any one of those five, I think, could win up in Chico, although I would pick Jared to be fifth. I think Breyer, and maybe even further back. I mean, short tracks, like true short tracks, not your Sonoys and your Cedar Lakes. I mean, I just think Dallas, Brandon, Sammy, Breyer, those guys. We saw how good Brandon Price was down in Daytona. Davis Fisher, Jared Vanderkooy, Johnny Lewis. These are going to be, there's a lot that can happen at these facilities, and I don't really know who's going to be a clear favorite. There's a lot of excitement going into it. With the singles class, again, we touched on it. Tom, Cody, Chase, Dalton, they've been the class of the singles field this year. Trent's starting to come around. Hopefully Evan will be okay and he can compete out there, because I think these short tracks could really favor Evan, especially now that he seems to be getting his starts down and showing more confidence. Ventura, with how loose it was last year, could kind of play into his favor. But, we'll see what happens. I just have my fingers crossed. Again, prayers go out to everybody. I hope all the riders who went down are okay and can make full recoveries. We need you all in the sport. And thank you for going out there and competing and chasing your dreams and being a flat track racer. You riders, thank you so much for all that you do to give us what we love as fans in the sport. And for those fans who do still show up and support it, thank you so much for supporting this show that I'm doing and for going out to the track and supporting those. We need you to tell your friends. We need more people in the stands. We need more people talking about this. Let's make these Cali rounds next level. Let's make them great shows, have a lot of fun there, and then let's try to let this be a low point, and let's only go up from here this season. Thanks for checking this out. Thanks for checking out all the videos that have been posted across our page. If you could also give some support to Tanks Laughing Podcast with Corey Texter and Eric Hartley, Off the Groove with Scotty Dubler, and Pipe Dreams with Corey Alexander and James Rispoli. These are amazing shows that offer some great insight into the world of flat track racing and motorsports in general. So give them a like and a follow and help support those who are supporting flat track racing as well.